They mocked Earth. Humanity ended the Galactic Council. The war did not begin with explosions. It began with laughter. The Galactic Council chamber floated in silent space, glowing like a small artificial star. Inside, hundreds of species sat in a perfect circle. Some breathed methane, some breathed water, some did not breathe at all. At the very edge of the chamber sat the smallest delegation, one human. Peter Kane did not look powerful. He looked tired. 3 years of smiling at insults had carved lines into his face. 3 years of listening to aliens explain why humanity was inferior. Today was supposed to be another humiliation. The Vel Council leader stood tall in the center. The human request for access to primary trade routes has been reviewed, the blue-skinned alien announced. We will now vote. Peter folded his hands calmly. He already knew the result. The voting lights activated around the chamber. Red, red, red. Every vote against humanity. The Vrex leader rose slowly. His armored body reflected the chamber lights. His mandibles clicked loudly. Humans are not ready, Felix declared. They are emotional, violent, unstable. They must remain restricted. Strange alien laughter echoed. Peter did not react. Then the Mordathian envoy stood. 6 cold eyes focused on the human. I have studied Earth, he said. Humans fight wars over land, over religion, over resources. They cannot even govern themselves peacefully, and they dare to request equal status. The laughter grew louder. It rolled through the chamber like a storm. The Mordathian leaned forward. Perhaps humanity should be grateful we allow them to exist. That was when something changed. Peter's hand slowly moved to the armrest of his chair. Hidden under his fingers was a small contact plate connected to his neural implant. He pressed it. No one noticed. The laughter continued. 30 seconds later on Earth's moon, deep beneath the surface, Lisa Hayes saw the signal. Her screen displayed one message. Authorization request. Confirm. She did not hesitate. She pressed confirm. Back in the council chamber, Peter stood up. Excuse me, he said softly. The laughter did not stop. He raised his voice slightly. Excuse me. Silence slowly spread. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward him. Peter smiled. It was not polite. It was not friendly. It was calm. On behalf of the United Earth Government, Peter began, humanity invokes Article 7 of the Galactic Compact. The chamber froze. The Vel leader leaned forward. Article 7 permits voluntary withdrawal from all treaties and obligations, Peter continued clearly. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. Complete silence. No laughter, no movement. You cannot, the Vel said sharply. Without council protection, you will be vulnerable. You will be isolated. Peter shook his head slightly. For 3 years, you reminded us of our place, he said. You limited our ships. You restricted our research. You controlled our expansion. His voice did not rise. It became colder. You thought we were learning to obey. Felix's mandibles stopped moving. What we were actually doing, Peter continued, was learning you. Murmurs spread across the chamber. We learned your trade systems, your gate network, your military patterns, your political divisions. Several delegates began checking their datapads. You believed humanity was weak because we accepted your rules. Peter paused. We were never weak. At that exact moment, alarms began flashing across council displays. Incoming reports. Human-controlled gates were locking access. Mixed research stations were being secured. Alien personnel were being removed from human facilities. What is happening? The Vel demanded. Peter answered calmly. We are reclaiming what is ours. Another alert appeared. Long-range sensors detected something else. A massive energy spike from the Kuiper Belt. The Vrex delegation received a private transmission. Felix's shell darkened. It cannot be, he whispered. Peter watched him. For 3 years, Peter said quietly, You counted our ships. The Mordathian looked up sharply. You believed we had 50 outdated vessels. The council screen suddenly displayed new data. Hundreds of unknown human signatures emerging from deep space. 300, then more. Battle-ready formations, stealth patterns activating, weapons online. Shock replaced arrogance. You have been preparing for war, the Mordathian accused. No, Peter corrected. We have been preparing to survive. The Vel leader's voice trembled slightly. This will destabilize the entire galaxy. Peter stepped back from his podium. The galaxy was already unstable, he said. You just kept it quiet. He gathered his documents. You tried to teach humanity humility, he added. Instead, you taught us strategy. He turned toward the exit. Behind him, panic exploded. Council members shouted over each other. Some demanded military action. Others demanded negotiation. But it was too late. As the council doors opened, Peter stopped one last time. You should ask yourself something, he said without turning around. If we built this much in secret, what else did we build? He walked out. The doors closed. Inside the chamber, fear spread faster than any weapon. Outside, across human space, fleets were already moving. Defensive grids activated. Allies from the outer rim began sending encrypted confirmations. Humanity was no longer requesting respect. Humanity was enforcing independence. And somewhere beyond the edge of mapped space, in a region the Council had hidden for centuries, something ancient detected the sudden surge of human power, and it began to move. The unexpected war had not started with weapons. It started with laughter, and the galaxy was about to learn why laughing at humans was a fatal mistake. Protocol Midnight. On the moon, no one was laughing. Deep under layers of rock and metal, inside a silent command center, a red light turned on. It blinked once, then twice. Lisa Hayes looked up from her console. For 3 years, she had waited for that light. She did not smile. She did not panic. She simply said, "Confirm signal." A young officer checked his screen. Authentication complete. Message received from Ambassador Kane. Lisa nodded. On the main display, 2 words appeared. Protocol Midnight. Around her, dozens of officers stopped talking. This was not a drill. For 3 years, humanity had acted weak. For 3 years, they had pretended to follow every restriction. But tonight, the mask was coming off. Send activation codes, Lisa ordered calmly. Target all human facilities outside Earth. The officers moved fast, but silent. Across Mars, Europa, Titan, and dozens of deep space stations, encrypted signals arrived at the exact same second. On Mars, inside a shared research facility, alien scientists were studying human-built technology. They didn't notice when the lights flickered. They didn't notice when the doors quietly locked. Commander Helen Price walked in with 10 human soldiers. Her voice was steady. This facility is now under full human control. You have 30 minutes to collect personal belongings. Everything else stays. The Zenthar scientists stared in shock. You cannot do this, one hissed. We have council agreements. Had agreements. Past tense. On Europa Station, orbiting Jupiter, Captain Greg Turner received the same message. Protocol Midnight activated. Kalari researchers were accessing human data systems when their screens suddenly went dark. Access denied, one whispered. Greg entered with security officers. You have been transmitting our research to your home world without permission. We have records of every file. The Kalari vents fluttered nervously. You are guests, and your invitation has ended. Across human space, the same scene repeated. Mixed facilities were sealed. Alien ships were escorted out. Joint trade hubs were secured. No violence, no chaos, only control. Back on the moon, Lisa watched the reports appear one by one. Mars secured. Europa secured. Titan secured. Outer Belt Station secured. She turned to the next screen. The gate network? Lieutenant Brooks swallowed slightly. All human-constructed gates are now locked to Council vessels. The hologram changed. Hundreds of bright connection lines faded out. The Council depended on human-built quantum gates. They thought humans were simply good engineers. They never asked what else those engineers were building. "Show fleet status," Lisa said quietly. The display shifted again. Far beyond Neptune, in the dark Kuiper belt, something massive moved. Hidden shipyards opened, gigantic doors slid back, and from inside the ice-covered structures, warships emerged. 1, then 10, then 100. Hundreds of ships drifted into formation. These were not cargo vessels. They were not defensive patrol ships. They were war machines. Advanced hulls, stealth surfaces, weapons unknown to the Council. Brooke stared at the number. 347 capital ships confirmed. Lisa remained calm. For 3 floating debris, burning wreckage, cold stars. On the bridge of the Defiance, Jack looked at the damage reports. Minor shield hits, no destroyed ships. He turned to his crew. "This was only the beginning," he said quietly. And far beyond the battle, in the dark region known as the Omega Sector, something ancient observed the human fleet's tactics. Something that had watched civilizations rise and fall. Something that had seen empires built on arrogance. For the first time in centuries, it felt curiosity, and it began moving closer. The battle had ended, but the galaxy had just realized something terrifying. Humans did not fight like everyone else. They fought to win. The Alliance rises. The galaxy did not sleep that night. Across dozens of star systems, one video played again and again. Council warships burning, Brex battlecruisers retreating, 5 human ships standing untouched. For the first time in centuries, the Council looked weak, and weakness spreads faster than fear. On a distant outer rim world, inside a dim war room carved into stone, alien leaders watched the battle replay in silence. One of them finally spoke. They defeated 67 ships with 5. Another answered quietly. They were never weak. Back on Earth, Peter Kane stood inside a secure diplomatic chamber. Holographic projectors filled the room with the faces of alien representatives. Not council members, not rulers of powerful core systems. These were species the Council had ignored for years. Smaller civilizations, outer rim traders, border worlds. Peter did not smile. "We are not asking you to fight our war," he said calmly. "We are offering partnership." The holographic faces studied him carefully. "For centuries," Peter continued, "the Council controlled trade, technology, and military access. They decided who grows and who stays small." A reptilian alien from a border system leaned forward. "And you are different?" it asked. Peter answered simply, "We do not demand obedience. We offer respect." Silence followed. Then one of the holograms flickered. "We accept a defense treaty with Earth." The first signature appeared on Peter's screen. Minutes later, another species joined. Then another. Within hours, 7 outer rim civilizations signed agreements with humanity. They were not powerful alone, but together, they formed something new. Back in the council chamber, emergency sessions continued. The Vel leader looked exhausted. "Human fleets control 70% of the gate network," an officer reported. "Outer rim systems are switching trade routes." The Mordathian envoy slammed his claws against the table. "This is rebellion." "No," the Kalari ambassador said quietly. "This is migration." The room went silent. The council ruled through structure, through rules, through central control. Humanity was offering something different. Choice. Meanwhile, Admiral Jack Ryan stood on the bridge of the Defiance as new fleet reports arrived. 7 additional species requesting diplomatic talks, his officer said. Jack nodded. Forward to diplomatic corps. He looked at the star map. Red council systems, blue human systems. Now small green markers began appearing. Allied systems. The map was changing. Back on Earth, Peter received another message. 23 species had now signed mutual agreements with humanity. 23 in less than a day. The Council had taken centuries to build that kind of influence. Humanity built it in hours. But something else worried Peter. He opened the private encrypted file. Inside were fragments of classified Council intelligence. One phrase repeated several times: Omega Sector. Peter had only mentioned it once in the chamber, but the reaction was immediate. Fear. Real fear. The Council was hiding something. Something powerful enough to justify controlling every developing species. Something dangerous enough to keep secret for thousands of years. His communicator beeped. Lisa Hayes appeared on screen. "Fleet holding position," she reported. "Council has not launched another attack." Peter nodded slowly. "They won't rush again." Lisa studied him. "You're thinking about Omega." "Yes." She crossed her arms. "The data we collected suggests the Council found something out there long ago." Peter's eyes narrowed. "And instead of sharing the information, they chose control." Lisa nodded. "They limited technological growth, restricted military development, prevented young species from becoming too powerful." Peter looked at the alliance list. They were afraid someone strong enough might investigate Omega. At that moment, a new alert appeared. Long-range sensors detected an energy disturbance near the Omega boundary. It was faint, but unnatural. Lisa saw it too. "Movement," she whispered. Peter's expression hardened. "Is it Council activity?" "No," Lisa replied. "Signature unknown." Across human command centers, tension rose. Fleet sensors expanded their range. Recon probes were launched. Admiral Ryan received the update. "Omega disturbance confirmed," his tactical officer said. Jack stared at the reading. Mass? Too large for a normal vessel. Origin? Beyond mapped space. Silence filled the bridge. This was what the Council had feared. Not humans, not rebellion. Something else. Back in the Council chamber, panic spread again. They had detected it too. The Vel leader's voice trembled. "It's too early." The Mordathian envoy turned pale. Containment failed? No one answered, because no one truly knew. On Earth, Peter made a decision. "Prepare exploratory fleet," he ordered. Lisa looked at him carefully. "We just changed the political balance of the galaxy, and now you want to move toward the most dangerous sector in known space?" Peter's voice remained calm. "We will not build a new order on fear." He looked at the star map. "We face it together, with allies, with honesty." Meanwhile, in the dark emptiness beyond Omega, something enormous shifted. It had watched civilizations before. It had watched empires rise and collapse. It had watched the Council choose control over courage. But now it detected something different. Human signals, human fleets, human alliances forming without fear. For the first time in centuries, it turned its attention fully toward them. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Ryan gave new orders. "Fleet remains on alert, no engagement unless necessary, recon only." The officers obeyed. No celebration now, only tension. Because the war with the Council was one thing, the unknown was something else entirely. Across the galaxy, smaller species looked at humanity differently now. Not as rebels, not as reckless, but as leaders. The Alliance was rising. Not through force, not through domination, but through choice. And far beyond their sight, the true test was approaching. The galaxy thought the battle with the Council had changed everything. They were wrong. That battle was only a warning. The real storm was coming from Omega, and this time, everyone would need humanity. What was waiting in Omega? The first ship did not explode. It simply stopped existing. There was no fire, no debris, no warning signal. One second, the Outer Rim patrol cruiser was there. The next second, empty space. On the bridge of the human scout vessel ECS Horizon, silence filled the room. "Replay that," Captain Mira Solano said quietly. The hologram showed the same thing again. A bright distortion, space bending inward. Then, nothing. The alien patrol ship was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged. Erased. Energy reading? Asked her sensor officer. Off the charts, she whispered. Behind her, a message from Fleet Command flashed. Omega anomaly expanding. Weeks earlier, it had been just a strange signal. Now it was moving, and it was moving toward inhabited systems. Back on Earth, Peter Kane stood in a dark operations room. The lights were low, the screens were bright. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood beside him. This is what the Council hid. On the screen, the Omega sector glowed red. Hundreds of years ago, the Council discovered something in that region. They sealed the data, restricted exploration, limited military growth of younger species. Not because they feared rebellion, because they feared this. Peter watched the sensor logs again. Send the message to the Council, he said. Minutes later, an emergency session opened. The Vel leader appeared. This time, there was no arrogance in his voice. You see it now, the Vel said quietly. Yes, Peter replied. What is it? The Council leader hesitated. It is not a weapon. Then what? Lisa demanded. The Mordothian envoy answered. It is a test. Silence followed. Peter's eyes narrowed. A test by who? The Vel leaders looked tired. Something older than us, older than the Council, older than most known civilizations. On the ECS horizon, Captain Mira Solano watched the anomaly grow larger on her screen. It was not shaped like a ship, it was not solid. It looked like space itself was folding and unfolding. Humanity had changed the balance, broken the old system, formed new coalitions. Maybe they had triggered it. On the horizon, the enormous entity shifted again. It did not attack. It did not move aggressively. It simply observed. Every sensor reading focused on the human ship, as if studying it, as if measuring it. Captain Mara forced her voice steady. Open channel. Her officers hesitated. Now. A beam of communication energy pulsed toward the entity. No response. Then the pressure wave returned. Not painful, not destructive, but heavy, like being examined. On Earth, Peter spoke quietly. It erased 2 civilizations. The Vel nodded. They were aggressive empires, expanding rapidly, militarized, dominating others. Peter looked at Lisa. That's not us. Lisa gave a small nod. We built alliances, not empires. On the horizon, the entity pulsed again. The white screen flickered. New words appeared. Show me. Captain Mara swallowed. Show you what? She whispered. Back on Earth, Peter made a decision. Transmit alliance records, he ordered. Trade agreements, defense treaties, multi-species cooperation. Lisa looked at him. You're showing it our network? Peter nodded. If it is judging power shifts, let it see how we change the galaxy. The data stream launched toward Omega. For a long moment, nothing happened. The entity remained still, watching, processing. And across the galaxy, billions waited. Council members, human allies, outer rim species, all staring at Omega. Because this was no longer about Council versus humanity. This was about survival. The old Council had tried to hide from it. Control growth, slow progress, stay quiet. Humanity had done the opposite. They faced it. Together. The entity pulsed once more. And then it moved closer. Not in attack, not in retreat, but in approach. The test was not over. It was just beginning. And this time, the galaxy would not face it divided. The judgment of the ancient. The galaxy held its breath. Not in fear, in waiting. Across hundreds of worlds, screens showed the same image. The Omega entity. Massive, silent, watching. It did not fire. It did not speak again. It simply moved closer to the human fleet. On the bridge of the ECS horizon, no one dared to move too fast. Captain Mara Solano stood perfectly still. Distance, she asked quietly. 2 light hours, her officer answered. The entity was not rushing. It was approaching slowly, like a predator, or like a judge. Behind the horizon, the main human fleet arrived. Admiral Jack Ryan's flagship, ECS Defiance, dropped out of jump space. Then dozens more ships followed. Formation tight, weapons ready, but not firing. "Hold fire," Jack ordered. Every officer on his bridge felt the tension. One wrong move, and billions could die. On Earth, Peter Kane watched the live feed. Lisa Hayes stood beside him. "It erased 2 civilizations before," she said softly. "Yes," Peter answered, "but we are not those civilizations." In the council chamber, alien leaders were not arguing anymore. They were silent. The Vel leader spoke quietly. "If it judges you the same way, it will not stop at one system." Peter nodded once. "We know." Back near Omega, the entity stopped moving. It floated in deep space, larger than any ship. Its surface shifted like liquid metal mixed with shadows. Then the distortion began again. Not violent, controlled. A pulse of energy spread outward. Every ship in the human fleet felt it. Systems flickered, shields adjusted automatically. "No weapon signature," the tactical officer said. "It's scanning us." On the horizon, Captain Mara felt something strange. A pressure in her mind. Not painful, just heavy, like being watched from the inside. Then, every screen went white again. Across the entire fleet, across Earth, across the council chamber, the same message appeared. Not one word this time, a sentence. "You have changed the pattern." Silence followed. No one understood what that meant. Admiral Ryan stepped forward. "Open communication channel." A beam of focused signal energy shot toward the entity. "This is Admiral Jack Ryan of the UEF fleet. We do not seek war." Seconds passed. Then the white screens flickered again. "You expand. You arm. You unite." The words were simple, but heavy. Back in the council chamber, the Mordathian envoy whispered, "It is describing us, thousands of years ago." Peter leaned forward. "But we did not conquer." On the fleet bridge, Jack answered carefully, "Yes, we arm, we defend, but we do not dominate." Another pulse, stronger this time. Some smaller alien ships near the fleet began to lose power. The entity's voice appeared again. "Power without unity destroys. Unity without respect collapses. What are you?" The question echoed across the galaxy. What are you? Not who, what? Peter felt the weight of it. This was not just about ships or weapons. It was about identity. On the horizon, Captain Mara spoke softly. "We are human." But that was not enough. Jack took a slow breath. "We are not alone," he said. Behind the fleet, a light ships from Outer Rim species arrived. Not ordered, not forced. They came by choice. 23 species, then 30. Ships of different shapes and sizes formed a loose circle around the human fleet. Not in attack formation, in support. Jack looked at the growing alliance. "We fight together," he said toward the entity. "Not to rule, not to control, but to protect freedom." The entity did not respond immediately. Its surface shimmered. Energy patterns shifted faster, as if thinking. On Earth, Lisa whispered, "It's evaluating us." Peter nodded. "It erased empires. Maybe it protects balance." Another pulse moved outward. This one did not disrupt systems. It passed gently over every ship, over every hull, over every signal. Then the white message appeared again. "You defend the weak. You offer choice. You do not demand obedience." The council chamber grew quiet, because those words described something new. Not the old council, not the ancient empires that vanished. Something different. The entity's final message began forming. The pattern shifts. Destruction not required. Across the fleet, officers stared at their screens. Destruction not required. The entity slowly began to turn, not toward inhabited systems, but back toward Omega. Admiral Ryan exhaled slowly. "It's leaving." But before the distortion faded, one final message appeared. Only on human screens. Not on council systems, not on alien ships, only on human displays. You will be tested again. Grow wisely. Then, it was gone. Space returned to normal. Stars steady, sensors calm. Silence filled every command center in the galaxy. On the Defiance, no one cheered. They simply stood there, alive. Back in the council chamber, the Vel leader looked at Peter. You faced it. Peter shook his head slowly. We faced it together. Outside, Alliance ships remained in formation. Different species, different histories, standing side by side. Not because they were forced, because they chose to. The Omega entity had not attacked. It had judged. And for now, humanity had passed. But Peter knew something important. The entity did not call them superior. It did not call them strong. It called them different. And that difference would shape the next chapter of the galaxy. The war with the Council had changed politics, but this moment changed destiny. The old galaxy ruled by fear was ending. The new galaxy, built on choice, had survived its first test. And somewhere deep inside Omega, the Ancient watched again, waiting. The lesson they learned too late. The galaxy did not celebrate. It reflected. For the first time in thousands of years, the Council was not the center of power. For the first time, fear did not control the stars. And for the first time, humanity was not asking for permission to exist. 6 months had passed since the Omega entity returned to the dark. 6 months since it judged the galaxy. 6 months since it chose not to destroy humanity. The old council chamber still floated in space, but it felt smaller now, quieter, humbled. Peter Kane stood inside a new chamber built beside it. This one was different. No elevated seats, no species placed above another, no hidden power structures. Just a circle, equal space for everyone. The new Galactic Compact was ready to be signed. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood near the entrance, watching alien representatives enter one by one. Some walked with pride, some with caution, some with shame. The Vel delegation arrived last. Their leader, Fekis, looked very different from the day he mocked humanity. His mandibles were still, his posture lower. He did not laugh this time. The Tarbin moderator called the meeting to order. Today, we finalize a new structure for the galaxy, she said calmly. One based on equal sovereignty, open trade, voluntary defense, and mutual respect. Silence filled the chamber, because everyone knew what almost happened. The Omega entity did not destroy them, but it could have. The Vel leader rose slowly. For centuries, he said, we believed control ensured survival. We believed limiting growth prevented chaos. He looked toward Peter. We were wrong. The words were heavy. Peter did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply nodded once. The Mordathian envoy stood next. We mocked humanity, he admitted. We underestimated them. He paused, and we nearly paid the price. Across the chamber, representatives shifted uncomfortably, because the truth hurt. Humanity had not started a war. Humanity had refused humiliation. Humanity had prepared. And when the true threat arrived, humanity did not hide. They stood together, with allies. The ratification process began. One by one, species confirmed their agreement to the new compact. No more restrictions based on age. No more forced technological limits. No more political dominance by a few core worlds. The vote passed. Unanimous. The old order officially ended. Outside the station, ships from 32 allied species docked freely. Human ships moved beside Vex vessels. Kalari trade cruisers shared ports with Outer Rim explorers. The galaxy looked different now. Not controlled. Balanced. Later, Peter stepped onto the observation deck. He watched stars shimmer beyond the glass. Lisa joined him. It feels strange. No war. No emergency alarms. Peter nodded. Peace feels strange when you had to fight for it. Lisa looked toward the Omega direction. Do you think it will return? Yes, Peter answered honestly. But next time, we'll be ready. She studied him. You don't mean with weapons. Peter shook his head. No. He looked at the docked ships. With unity. Across the galaxy, news networks replayed footage of the Omega encounter, but something else spread faster. A speech Peter had given after the ratification. The speech that changed how species saw humanity. In that speech, he said, "You called us primitive. You called us aggressive. You called us young. You were right about one thing. We are young. That means we are still growing, still learning, still changing. You tried to control growth because you feared what might happen. We chose to grow anyway. You built a galaxy based on fear. We built alliances based on respect. And when the unknown arrived, it did not test our weapons. It tested our unity." The recording ended there, and across dozens of worlds, alien leaders replayed those words again and again, because the lesson was clear. Strength alone was not enough. Control alone was not enough. Age alone was not enough. The galaxy belonged to those who could adapt, and humans adapted faster than anyone expected. Back in the old council chamber, now nearly empty, Feki stood alone for a moment. He remembered laughing at Peter. He remembered calling humans weak. He looked down at his claws. "Children grow," he whispered quietly. Far away, in deep space, Admiral Jack Ryan stood on the bridge of the ECS Defiance. The fleet was smaller now. Ships were spread across allied systems, not in war formation, in partnership. An officer approached. "Admiral, new contact from a distant sector. Unknown species requesting alliance talks." Jack smiled slightly. "Forward it to Diplomacy Corps." Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were building something bigger. And in the shadows of Omega, the Ancient watched once more. It did not move. It did not speak, but it recorded the shift. A young species had changed the pattern without conquest, without extermination, without domination. That was rare. Very rare. And so, for now, the test ended. Back on Earth, Peter prepared for his next mission, exploration beyond Omega. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as partners. Before leaving, he looked once last time at the star map. 6 months ago, humanity had been mocked. 6 months ago, they had been restricted. 6 months ago, they were allowed to exist. Now, they were equals. Not because they demanded it, because they proved it. The galaxy learned a simple truth. If you push humans too far, they do not break. They evolve. If you mock humans long enough, they do not shrink. They grow. And if you underestimate humans completely, you create something unstoppable. Not unstoppable through destruction, but unstoppable through unity. The old order died the day humanity stopped bowing. The new order began the day humanity stood up. And somewhere in the endless dark, the stars burned a little brighter, because this time, the galaxy chose courage over fear. And that made all the difference.